Kia ora and welcome to Sam's Take, a series about entertainment news and reviews with me, Sam Rilstone. Today I'm diving into the latest of Marvel's series on Disney+, Moon Knight. The 6-episode series follows Oscar Isaac as Stephen Grant, a simple museum clerk from London who discovers he has another personality living within him called Marc Spector. Marc is the avatar of the Egyptian god Khonshu, acting as his avatar on Earth as Moon Knight. Marc is trying to stop Arthur Harrow, played by Ethan Hawke, from releasing another Egyptian god Ammit and enacting his version of cleansing the world. Oscar Isaac plays the tragedy of Stephen with so much emotion and the intensity and violence of Marc with such brutality and also quite a bit of tragedy. Despite the fact they obviously have the same face, Isaac makes the two personalities appear as distinctly different characters. And their relationship has engaging chemistry. The way it develops from adversarial to codependence to brotherhood is actually pretty emotional to watch, so full credit to Isaac. In the comics, Marc suffers from dissociative identity disorder as a result of childhood trauma. As in the show, he is chosen by Khonshu to be his fist of vengeance Moon Knight, using his different personalities to navigate the different sectors of society and gather intel. Though Marc in the comics is a little more erratic and eccentric, which he isn't in this, but I would have loved to have seen him get off the leash a bit more. On the whole, I really like that they're using this character. He's super interesting and has a lot to dig into from a performance perspective. He doesn't fit the mold of traditional superheroes, partly down to the fact that he's more of an anti-hero really. He isn't a super soldier or have a tech-based suit. He's a man struggling with mental illness and the Egyptian god of the moon. Akin to the Punisher, he has tragedy and grey areas to explore, which they do get into around episode 4, which blows the doors off the hinges. One criticism I do have though is that there's very little actual Moon Knight time. I love the character study and the ideas that they explore, but I also wanted to see more of Marc doing Moon Knight things. May Calamawy plays Layla Al-Fuli, Marc's wife. She's a wonderful addition and another strong female presence in the MCU who actually gets something to do. She doesn't just go along with what the protagonist does, having conviction and intention, which is a welcome change from the damsel in distress. She's based on a comic character called Marlene, but pretty much the same as she is in the show. I thought the voice of Khonshu F. Murray Abraham was the perfect choice. He has such density and gravity to every sentence. A great get, and he adds a lot of fun dark humour with the matter-of-factness of Khonshu offering quite a few laughs in my opinion. I also like how there's just a separate Egyptian god doing his own thing in a world full of superheroes. Ethan Hawke's Arthur Harrow is supposedly the avatar of Ammit, goddess of judgment, though that is a little vague and or unexplained whether he is or not. And the character kinda has the same motivation as Thanos, ridding the world of those who are unbalanced or evil. But you know, through murder before they get the chance to do the evil thing. Despite a bit of narrative teething, Hawke delivers a sinister performance with a calmness and calculation that at times is quite Shakespearean. There's some quite nice cinematography scattered throughout the show. Just the simple notion of putting a camera somewhere that a human eye might not necessarily view something makes everything all the more interesting. I found there was some sporadic, iffy CGI, and while there is a brutality to Moon Knight, there wasn't as much as I'd like. Though annoying and inaccurate on the whole, Moon Knight does get compared to Batman a lot. The brutality of the two is something that is widely compared, and there is an element of truth to it, so I was kind of wanting there to be more. However, the final episode does provide some amazing hand-to-hand combat similar to that of Captain America or Falcon, which is always nice over a big CGI laser fight. Akin to the Doctor Strange sequel, Marvel continue to lean into the horror elements and darkness later in the season. Like, it gets very grim. But it gets into the guts of who this character is, a very damaged individual. And Isaac's portrayal of that damage is engaging and intense to watch. There is a lack of references to the rival Marvel universe in which this show exists. This is both a welcome change and a little odd as it kind of makes it feel not part of it at all. On one hand, that's good and fun and fresh, because the show needs to stand on its own legs, but it's also not the basis on which these shows and films are made at this point. They have interconnectivity built into their lore, and Moon Knight is such an amazing character, so seeing him have stories with these other well-developed and portrayed characters would be great. And let's be honest, you don't get a talent like Oscar Isaac just to have him in a limited series. But Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige has said Moon Knight will appear in upcoming films despite Isaac being coy on a return to the role. I'm excited to see where the character goes in the future. The potential to see him interact with the wider universe is super fun. I think because he's so different and a bit grey and unhinged, he provides a good contrary to most of the heroes we have so far in the main continuity. The way the show drip feeds you information is engaging, keeps you interested by giving you just enough that you don't get frustrated or bored. Though it does get a bit rushed towards the end. There's been a lot of criticism for the 6-episode model these Disney Plus series adhere to. A lot of things get glossed over, not to the point of full-on plot hole, but it just struggles to make sense of some things given the short time frame. Particularly the Ennead in this show, the Council of Avatars of the Egyptian gods, which we'll get into in spoilers. It's a bit of a shame too, because I really love that Marvel are exploring more cultures and religions and allowing them to coexist rather than cancel each other out. The fact we can have Norse gods exist with Egyptian gods who exist with Wakandan gods, all with their own versions of the afterlife, is amazing and speaks to a wider inclusive universe. Speaking of, the panther god Bast from Black Panther is referenced in the show. She's the god who leads the first Wakandan chief to the heart-shaped herb, source of the Black Panther power. In Egypt, she is known as Bastet. Given she is worshipped in both ancient Egypt and Wakanda, I wonder if there is a connection between Moon Knight and Black Panther in the future. Overall, I think the series was a good introduction for the character. Oscar Isaac was the perfect casting, and he committed himself entirely to the role. Despite suffering from some late pacing issues among other things, I'm super excited to see the future of one of the more wacky Marvel characters, so full recommendation from me. Now I'm going to get into a few spoilers and explanations, so if you don't want to know anything about that, I'll see you in the next video. First, let's talk about that post-credit scene in the final episode. After plenty of tease, we finally got the reveal of the third personality, Jake Lockley. In the comics, Lockley is a cab driver who acts as the eyes and ears of the criminal underworld for Mark and Steven. In the scene, we see him and Khonshu kidnapping Arthur Harrow from the institution he is being held in before killing him in the back of a limo, a reference to his cab driving origin. A slight departure from the comic canon, as Jake is not the main killer of the trio. I love that we got the three personalities, and the sinister brutality from Jake is super exciting for the future of the character. We also got the inclusion of Mr. Knight. In the comics, Moon Knight changes his outfit to the dapper suit ensemble, using it when working as a police consultant and answering only to Mr. Knight. I love that Marvel weren't shying away from the absurdity of Moon Knight's lore, and doing my favourite thing, which is putting their characters in their big dumb suits. Speaking of suits, in the final episode we see Layla become the avatar of Tarawet in what looks like a reference to the comic character Scarlet Scarab. In the comics, the Scarlet Scarab is the alter ego of Abdul Faul, which is very close to Layla and her deceased father's surname, Al-Fawli. When Tarawet gives her this power, she does say Layla's father would be proud, so there might be a bit of a connection there. Either way, the suit was sick, and she's another great addition to the diverse heroes of the MCU. Now to the problems with the Ennead. The Ennead first just discount Mark's claim that Harrow is trying to release Ammit, and then when he eventually arrives to do so, they act surprised and shocked, only to be dispatched instantly. It just doesn't make any sense. You were told that this quite serious event was going to happen, and you did minimal to stop it, if anything, and then you just get swept away for the sake of time. It's not the worst crime in the world, but it's a bit of narrative laziness in my opinion. There was also originally a plan for the main villain to be Bushman. In the comics, Bushman is a feral mercenary who Mark works with before he becomes Moon Knight. They work together to steal Egyptian gold found by the character based on Layla's father. Mark eventually betrays Bushman as he doesn't believe in his senseless killing. Bushman then beats Mark within an inch of his life and murders Layla's father. Khonshu then appears to Mark and makes him Moon Knight. This is of course very similar to what happened in the show and leaves the door open for Bushman to appear in the future. I love that there's lots of opportunity for this character, and the team executing his story clearly know what they're doing. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Sam's Take. I'll see you next time for more entertainment news and reviews.